Warning: the content and views expressed on the lab by host and guest is strictly for entertainment and educational purposes and should not be mistaken as financial advice. A guest appearance by representatives of crypto projects or any other organization does not constitute an endorsement by the Alchemist Project. We strongly encourage all of our listeners to perform their own due diligence and consult a qualified professional when considering any investments of any kind. Welcome back to The Lab, a podcast brought to you by the Alchemist Coin Project. My name is Savon Springer, and I'll be your host as we dive deep into the why behind the top builders, innovators, contributors, and communities in the crypto and blockchain ecosystem. Let's get into it. But first, a quick word from our partners. The Crucible NFT project is pioneering next-gen NFTs, combining utility and generative art to create something truly unique. The Crucible is a smart wallet that allows you to subscribe to multiple rewards programs at once, providing you with a safer and more seamless DeFi experience. Plus, you get access to your very own generative art Crucible, which evolves over time as you interact with your Crucible. It is truly spectacular. See what all the hype is about and head to crucible.alchemist.wtf and mint your Crucible today. Now for those at the back, that's crucible.alchemist.wtf and share your Crucible with us on Twitter using the hashtag NextGenNFTs. Great day, great day. It's Savon here, host of the Lab Podcast, Alchemist Coin Project community member. Just wanted to double back around and provide y'all with a quick community update because I did jump into the interview rather quickly, so wanted to get this to y'all. So, two main things. The first one is that there was another missed buyback program, and this buyback bought back roughly 20,278 missed with an approximate USD value at the time of $192,000. And keep in mind, 50% of all missed revenues, are airdropped back to ETH missed LPs via the Crucible. So if for some reason you have not yet set your Crucible up, head on over to crucible.alchemist.wtf and set that up. And if you need assistance, there are help documents as well as videos to help you do that. Now, the second main update is that the Copper Launch platform is very close to completion and deployment on the Avalanche chain. All right, so that means you'll be able to use the Copper Launch platform to access LBPs on Avalanche. In today's episode, we sit down with Jomari Peterson of Snowball on Avalanche, and he actually is going to be one of the first curators for the Avalanche version of the Copper platform. So, just wanted to provide you with those quick updates. I hope you all enjoy the episode. Take care. Today, we have a special guest on the episode, Jamari Peterson. Now, Jamari is the core strategist for Snowball and Axial. He also has significant experience in decentralized technology spaces. He built his first organization in the space in 2017, the Quantum Resistant Ledger. Under his leadership, they raised $4.16 million, leading to a $100 million plus valuation. He also developed a collateral-free lending solution, the Digital Reserve, and an innovative gaming mechanism for finite games. As a serial entrepreneur, academic, and public speaker, Jomari Peterson brings vision, a strong understanding of the business landscape, and an interdisciplinary technical background to the establishment of blockchain-related features. He's a PhD candidate at Carnegie Mellon University in engineering and public policy, with a focus on risk assessment and system design. Prior to Carnegie Mellon, he received his BS and MBA in strategy and logistics from Howard University. Jomari, pleasure to have you on. Welcome.
Good to be here. It's a pleasure. Good to be here. It's always nice writing good things about myself and hearing this.
Hey man, it's well written. It is well written. So thank you. This made my job incredibly easy right there. So the reason, one of the reasons we have you on today is because you're actually coming on as the very first curator for LBPs on the Avalanche chain for the Copper Launch platform. So before we get into that, how about you just catch people up? Obviously, we just read through your bio, but just share a little bit about yourself and what your experiences have been and just what you think people should know about you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, like you said, my name is Jamari, Goodway member. Jamari goes so far in his Ferrari. Jamari, it helps. A little bit. It's really a mnemonic. But basically, I came into this space because I was trying to figure out ways of doing actually voting inside of a way that would provide more accessibility and also strengthen the results of what people are voting for. So I was calling it an informed democracy, where people choose whether they vote on and then they delegate it to other people if they don't really know that topic, so they can vote as a representative. Eventually, delving into the space, learned about cryptocurrency through a cryptographer, learned about blockchain, and I learned that what I was talking about was called liquid democracy. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. So I was really just investing in this idea of decentralizing power and allowing disenfranchised, oppressed communities to be able to find a way to basically create value based upon their senses and based upon their way of understanding the world. And cryptocurrency networks was that way of doing that, whether it's because of the technology, the monetary policy, because of the cultural value. People are able to create value and then move that value in a way that represents their interests. And for me, so Snowball was a medium, has been a medium for doing that around DeFi, providing a governance body made of users who are able to kind of guide the direction of decentralized finance on Avalanche, using their minds, their resources, and their time. And so we were one of the first dApps and DAOs launched on Avalanche. And I've been blessed and favored to have the ability to help kind of guide and help nurture that community as it's been growing. So really when I heard about the opportunity to become the first curator for Copper, which is basically a way of providing liquidity bootstrapping for new projects, it was really a perfect fit for Snowball because it wants to expand DeFi on Avalanche. And then I want to be part of empowering people to be able to create the things that they think are impactful. And Copper is one of those mechanisms for doing that. And Snowball is about to become a vehicle for making that happen. So for me, I'm just a dude who knows a dude, and I just like building stuff, and I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy building together, and I just love this space. Whether it's GameFi, DeFi, the decentralized IP, just the idea of people can choose to be part of this community and then create something together is just really powerful for me.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. And when I heard about Snowball, obviously I went and I did my research, and it reminded me there were a lot of parallels between the Alchemist project and in the sense of Snowball in and of itself acting as a bit of an incubator for other projects, kind of curating what projects that would really stand up on their own as individual protocols and dApps, but also create a cohesive ecosystem for people who particularly want to dive into DeFi. And I saw that is it the Fi Hub that you all are launching soon, and that seems to be like it's going to help people really see these individual puzzle pieces and put them together. So before we go any deeper, I'm curious, as somebody who has been in the space for years, what was it that attracted you to Avalanche versus a lot of these different chains, especially last year, 2020? That was like the era of the smart contract platform. So what was it about Avalanche?
So after I finished, kind of exited from the quantum resistant ledger, I was looking into consensus protocols because I was trying to figure out how to do proof of stake inside more effective ways, and what would be the next, what would make the scalability improve. And I started diving into what's called DAGs, which are these directed acyclic graphs. And basically, it's another data structure that is useful for coming to consensus and coming to a conclusion about what history a particular asset might have. So we know that and blockchain is basically a data structure as well. If you consider it, like some people call it a 0-degree DAG. So if a DAG is basically all these various lines happening that's going all over the place, and you're looking at the end to look at the history, a blockchain is just the singular line of all these actions lined up after each other. So I heard about Avalanche, and they were using a DAG as part of their methodology for consensus. They were also using some their data structure. There's also used some novel things around kind of this snowman system and around what I consider more of a gossip type protocol where people are discussing probabilistically what they heard versus what they think is happening, and they come into a conclusion from there. And I just thought all of it was novel and interesting, and it was a DAG. And because I knew that DAGs were the next evolution, I believe, of the Web3 space, particularly when it came to cryptocurrencies, I felt like, okay, this is where I need to be and be part of this network, because they're seeing where it's going, and they've met a lot of the requirements, such as having an EVM or a smart contract layer that kind of mitigates the ability to not be able to line up transactions. Because there's some weaknesses in DAGs as currently situated, is they can be really fast, but you might not get order right. And you need order if you're doing financial transactions, because who paid who first? Because if you paid me second, you owe me some money. But if I paid you first, we all good. Like, so things like that need order to them, and DAGs can sometimes be bad at that. But by having the EVM and kind of consolidating that DAG down so they can provide that service, they still got increased speed, but also was able to have order. And I was like, there you go. They met that. So that was a technical reason for why Avalanche.
Okay,
It did help that there was an airdrop for Pangolin that some people from the Black and Cryptocurrency Facebook group told me about.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think the first DAG I heard about was Hedera Hashgraph. I believe they use a DAG structure, and that was maybe early 2018 when I heard about that. And I was sitting around telling people, like, yo, this might be a better implementation of the blockchain consensus mechanism, because I was not very technical about it at the time, but that makes sense that kind of piqued your interest as somebody who studied it at such a technical level.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One kind of more technical thing
go for it.
What's interesting is that the Ethereum virtual machine uses work for the Ghost protocol, was based on this work from these guys from Israel, and they start working on inclusive blockchains, and then they start working on DAG, and they have another project they do now. But basically, the underlying methodology they have for consensus, what they call uncles and whatnot, is basically kind of derived from the idea of DAG. So even Ethereum recognized kind of the benefits of moving toward these more directed kind of structures. So I've always thought that was interesting. It's always been there. It's just kind of the evolution of that further out.
Okay. I learn something every day. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, so one of the questions, and maybe we can expand upon it, but I feel like our listeners will have an idea about LBPs. But if you could just briefly, reiterate why there is value in projects being able to bootstrap their liquidity, and specifically how you think having Copper on the Avalanche chain is going to benefit the Avalanche ecosystem as a whole.
Yes. So in many protocols, there's a chicken and egg issue, right? There's the issue of how do I create value, and also how do I transfer transfer value? And that price discovery methodology, or that value discovery process, typically, historically, what was an organic over time process, right? Bitcoin existed in many years. In 2011, 2013 was really where people started really engaged on it. But Bitcoin had already been there existing, and people were mining at that time, but it needed time to gain traction, to demonstrate utility, for people to draw it in, establish a price around it that could be shared and utilized for trades and for utilization at scale. What liquidity bootstrapping and all these other launch pads provide is a mechanism to accelerate that process by allowing a group of people to come together in the price discovery process, and then actually move their funds into the market in a way that actually allows people, as they establish that price, to actually demonstrate that the supply is meeting demand by being able to withdraw and or deposit at will. So Copper was one of the first and initial platforms that really, I feel like, did this inside of a way that provided a decentralized approach to implementing this. I'm connected to the balancer implementation for liquidity pools. So on Avalanche, there are some existing launch pads, but those launch pads are currently mostly designed in a way with some type of larger gatekeeper in their process. For Rocket Joe, which is doing a great job of promoting projects, you need RJoe, which requires you to stake Joe, their token. For Avalanche, which was one of the first launch pads, and does a lot of GameFi stuff, has really great traction. They require you to have Zava, and you're also mitigated by your geolocation on how you can participate with that. And then recently we have Dexalot with their pricing discovery mechanism, which actually is not gate kept right now, but the exposure kind of there is a little bit less, and is actually using a central limit order book, which is a little bit less familiar to people currently. So kind of these are the main launch pads that kind of exist right now, and Copper brings a unique perspective and methodology for approaching bootstrapping the accessibility of new protocol tokens.
Okay. Now, when I think about just when protocols start up, and Avalanche has been around for a little while now, but obviously I would still say it's fresh. There is, in my opinion, there's an intense value around competition, right?
Yeah.
Projects, protocols being able to get some of the funding required so that they can build out, expand, develop,
Yeah.
and bring some sort of product to market. Now, that being the case, what steps and what sort of process do you have? Because as a member of the A Ventures and what you all do at Snowball, I imagine you spend a fair amount of time looking at early stage projects in the ecosystem and trying to ascertain whether or not it makes sense to help support this project, whether it be by making connections, whether that be through some sort of investments. But could you walk us through what process you have in place, or what you all may do at A Ventures to the degree that you can share, to really try to figure out if a project is, if you see the potential in it long term, thus warranting a bet on it in the short term?
Yeah. So there's two narratives that people typically take, and that I've seen inside Snowball and Adventures. There's the macro trend narrative of, hey, P2E is hot right now, to DeFi is hot right now, GameFi is hot right now, right? So then you're choosing projects based upon their ability to fit and grow underneath that narrative, right? And then you also have value-based investments, which is this might not be the hot thing, but this conceptually meets a need and meets a value proposition, such as a problem that needs to be solved, a problem or a solution that improves on the existing condition sufficiently that people will be willing to make a transfer, right? So then you have those type of investments. Like, is this a technological leapfrog from where we are? So those are typically the two narratives that they're trying to have. Why people end up just doing like things like deep tech. Like, it's like, okay, I'm going to invest in deep tech because of the long-term proposition and value of what they're creating, even though people might not realize it right now. And then you have investment inside the thing with the greatest hype at the time. The fundamentals might not always be there, but you know that community, that accruing of value by people choosing to represent it is really very powerful as well. So it's kind of the recognition of these two paradigms for valuing it. That's the first thing that Snowball has. Then in addition, you kind of have a really a broader, for at least Snowball, we have a broader perspective of the ecosystem because we're a DAO. So we have the ability to investigate things from team a little bit more diligently, to finances, to actually the outreach capacity, or what a project has already outreached has done within the community, right? Because we're spread out, and some of us have been early, some of them late, some of them have their full-time job is in this space, and they're just aware from the absorbing of the fumes of Web3. Like, they're like, okay, no, this project is in line with our ethos, with the way that they're building, with the ability to retain value, to distribute value to its users, or to its holders. So those are the things we kind of look at, and kind of how Snowball kind of positions itself as we look at protocols. We typically very much look at kind of the leadership, but behind new protocols, even decentralized ones, because even for some that's working to become more and more decentralized, you typically need a force, a push that's moving things towards some expression of that protocol, of that network, because culture matters, right? So you kind of need like a culture leader at some level, or cultural leaders, and that's also really important as well, because some cultures aren't viable. Like, for example, like cultures that are really antagonistic to each other tend to to focus too much on pulling down each other, where they're not looking at what the next thing is, right? So we've even seen that inside Avalanche. There's been protocols that were very antagonistic to other protocols, but as you see, that their evolution caused them to drop that antagonism, because the antagonistic approach doesn't focuses so much on others that doesn't allow them to dream bigger. So therefore, kind of those type of things are things that you're looking at. Are they building it because they just think they can do something better, or because they think that they have this more expensive vision of what's there in the world? These are some of the things. I don't know if I'm rambling or not, but these are just some of the things that we look at, we think about in the process.
No, you're not rambling at all. And the reason I ask is because I think there are a couple of kinds of people who are attracted to things that they may find in very early stage. So obviously, LBPs are a way to get access to that. Copper as a platform allows a more equitable access to it. And I wanted to get your opinion so that people who are listening, whether they are the sort of person who has a lot of experience investing in things early, or there's somebody who's trying to figure out what can they do so that whatever they do allocate to a project, they're making it from a sound standpoint. Because I think everybody in crypto, you can be here a week or two and acknowledge that, okay, a lot of times something goes up because there is a macro wave that is pulling that up. But then as soon as that narrative is gone, as soon as that wave is gone, not only will you usually see the price action of any associated asset to that project collapse, but a lot of times you see the project it stops developing, and wherever they were at, that progress sort of halts. And so I was just curious what sort of basically in a roundabout way, what advice you might have for somebody so that they can make a better assessment as they see these different projects.
Yeah, no, it's difficult for that. I mean, because you have to look at a lot of times, look at the people behind it, the
Hmm.
enthusiasm of the builders. Are they in it to create something short term or long term? I've been part of projects that built really dope stuff, but then but then the developers got disheartened by the community, and then they stopped building. Not even because the community made them feel bad, and they're like, well, you know what? I don't even feel like building anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you have people that's like driven by desire to see some reality made. And then there's people that's like saying, you're building, and then it doesn't match up with the economics of the space. Because right now, the reality is, these launch pads provide a mechanism for people to discover price in a way that sometimes become difficult and more of a fair launch approach, right? Like a lot of fair launches are like saying, if you use our product, we'll distribute tokens to you, and by using that product, you're accruing more, right? And they distribute in that mechanism. But what happens in that process often is people are kind of mercenaries, so they're moving from project to project, acquiring tokens, and they sell them off regardless of how well that protocol is doing its job or not. So it's missing that fundamental understanding and consideration of the price of the discovery, because people have acquired in a way where they never even considered the value of what they're holding or being part of. And that's kind of what people have to think about in this fair launch process. Like saying, does this represent the value creation of this protocol, whether it's money value creation or actually just like the fun that I'm going to get out of this token, right? So I play games, for example, with tokens that I got literally because I want to play the game. I thought it was fun. Like there was this one, it only lasted for 2 months, but I was the champion. Like in the second season, it was well worth it for me to play that game, and the joy I got out was worth the cost. But that's the evaluation you have to make, because you're discovering price, and if you can exit at what points against other people who also agree on that price. And that's what these facilitate. Like, how do you move value from one person to another, given what your values are and someone else's values are? Are they the share? Do they value it more or less? And that's what this is about. And that fundamental evaluation about what you're willing to expend based on more the utility you'll get out of it or believe you can get out of it is really important. I hope that makes
No, 100%, 100%. The way I look at it, these platforms are effectively serving to provide a market, right? And markets are looking for efficiency, and there needs to be an equilibrium between what people are willing to give it up for and what people are willing to do to acquire whatever that asset is. And until that really settles upon some place where there's some degree of an equilibrium, there's always going to be an arbitrage opportunity, and then people will come in, they'll take advantage of that arbitrage opportunity, and over time, it usually kind of tapers down to the point where the price becomes pretty stable over time, and that might be a floor that is quite low, or that might be something around where it may have launched at, once it settles back down, but it always is going to try to find that equilibrium.
Right. No, and it's interesting because one thing is people talk about markets being irrational or rational, and that they always trends towards rationality. I will say our market does not trend towards rationality yet. So, so if you're expecting that the pricing of things to be based on rational expectations, I would say please reevaluate. I have seen treasuries that are extremely high in the valuation of the governing assets are a tenth of the treasury. And I've seen ones that have no treasury, that have no assets, vaporware, and they're cajillions of times greater than any utility that they could ever possibly derive. And our job and your job when you are participating in these type of mechanisms is to provide your expectation and understanding to help balance out that expectation away to provide that stability. Because the more we have tools and systems to help people better discover price and demonstrate price and act upon those things, the more effective and the more rationality that will start to develop inside this space. And that's why things like balancers and central limit order books and copper launch and various lending and borrowing solutions matter, because they provide the tools that are necessary for people to better impact the market in a way that shapes it for the good and our bad.
Very well said. Very well said. So next up, I am curious, with your time in the space, two questions. One is about crypto as a whole, and one is about Avalanche. What has surprised you the most, this can be good or bad, about crypto? And then what has surprised you the most, once again, good or bad, about the Avalanche blockchain, the Avalanche ecosystem?
I think the thing that has surprised me the most about the space is how willing people are to exist under developer dictatorships, honestly. And what a developer dictatorship is, I call this kind of.
So please elaborate.
Is basically a protocol or an organization will be created in a token or some utility, and all the governance decision-making power is still in the hands of the developer or founder. And there is no mechanism, no means for other people to contribute, to direct, to guide what's happening. The whole decentralized component or the empowering component is missing. And people are fine when people choose, I'm fine with that because they're going to make me some money potentially via this or that. And that level of wholehearted trust in those individuals, whether it's because of charisma, because of what they made, because of the technology. It's interesting because there is the tendency of recreating what has already existed in the past. And if we're saying that we're coming to this space to create new institutions, new means of interacting with each other, and accessing the decentralized technology so that we can empower communities that haven't been empowered before, we can move wealth and kind of have our voice be heard in a way that we couldn't, to be willing to give up what you have crossed a big barrier of entry to gain has been really surprising to me. The number of DAOs in the overall space and willing to actually have active governance has been a lot less than what I would have expected. So that is one thing that has been surprising to me on a macro level in the crypto space.
Okay, if we can pull on that, if we can pull on that thread for just a moment, and then we'll get to the Avalanche component. I think that you articulated that very, very well. And if I just were to hazard a guess, it's because, one, we have to acknowledge you are a builder, right? You come in and you are creating these protocols, these applications. We're still not at the point, most people, like Most people on planet Earth are not creators, they're consumers. It's a matter of the fact. Most people in this ecosystem are not builders. They are mercenaries in a lot of ways. I wouldn't even call most of them investors. They are here to say, okay, I heard Shiba Inu did what? Dogecoin did what? I need to find the next thing that will do that for me, and I am out. Because sometimes I think I too look at certain ecosystems and I'm curious why. Because I know early on, for instance, I got the Uniswap airdrop. And for a while, I had this macro thesis that strong protocols, whether it be an Aave, whether it be something like Compound, Uniswap, that their governance tokens would just tremendously go up in value because, oh my goodness, here is your key to be able to steer the direction of where this clearly integral and fundamental component of this entire ecosystem, this is your key to be able to help guide that, to help lead it in a way. And then I kept sitting around, and I'm seeing all of these damn vaporware coins just go up, and I'm like, yo, what? I'm like the meme with the stick, do something.
Right, no, right.
But I think it comes back to just it's only going to be valued by the people who will take the time out to vote on it, and for that, there's going to have to be some degree of investment, not just monetarily speaking, but investment energetically, emotionally, psychologically, long term in the success or the direction of that protocol. And I think that is the vast minority of users in this space.
Yeah, and that's one thing I liked about, been happy about what Snowball has done on that day. Is like we've had around 40% turnout on voting,
Wow.
which is extremely high in this space. We have about 60% of our tokens, 64% of our tokens are locked for a year, for over a year and a half. So we have a very high participation rate and engagement rate. And that has nothing to do with the valuation people have of token. That's the expectation of what we're building, what we're making, what we can contribute to on the network. And that's kind of why, even for the Copper launch, why the curator thing kind of mattered for us is like we can mobilize the people that we have inside of our community in a way that other people can't, because they're engaged in what we're making and building. But yeah, most people, I am a builder and everybody's not a builder. And there's a lot of consumers and mercenary capital for sure, chasing after the next thing. And that's kind of what surprised me is because like there's a barrier to enter this space, right? So entering this space, you would think that, oh man, this is the opportunity. So like, this is how I can create value. You don't have to chase everything. You can actually find a community and with that community, create and establish value amongst you guys selves about what you guys are in a way that you never could be before. So that's that part of the narrative. Mm-hmm. That was surprising. And then more specifically to Avalanche, I think the thing that has surprised me is our NFT market is not as strong as I would have thought. When I know Ethereum has higher gas, so therefore you also have to accrue. You have the network effects, and you also have more cash there to make the value of what you have there more. And then to even move an asset means it needs to be worth more. So there is that mechanic, right? Like if I have to pay more, everything I should be worth more. There's that. But there are actually legitimately dynamic, cool things being built on Avalanche that the NFT market doesn't even parallel, even if you take a ratio of it, like what's happening on Ethereum. And the fact that generative art hasn't really made it to Avalanche has been interesting to me. I've seen generative art on Ethereum. That's really nice. Seen it on Tezos. And generative art is basically art that is programmed, and then the script for that programming is saved on chain typically. And then that when you mint, the hash that you create in that minting process is actually used to feed it into that script, and that creates what your particular piece of art. So you are actually part of the generating your art piece based upon the scope of whatever that artist made, right? So I find this kind of art very interesting. And that hasn't really made it to Avalanche in a real way. There's been a couple of random people that made stuff, but not really a production and establishment of that type of art on this network. We have a big focus on NFT utility on Avalanche in a way that's not really on other chains, I believe. There's a lot more PFPs on, like, for example, Ethereum, not as strong of a market on Avalanche. But utility things, we definitely see a lot of that. People talking about, oh, what's the utility of this NFT? What can I do with it? Yeah, can I make money with it? Can I sell it? Like, I mean, what can you do? I think there's some cool things like intellectual property that's happening around NFTs on Avalanche. That's been really cool. That's not as big of a discussion in the space. But yeah, the NFT market has been very strong on the technical end, I feel like, besides the missing piece of generative art, but very not as exposed despite the gravity of what's being made. So that would be my two things.
Okay, yes. So I'm thinking if I were just to snowball, pun intended, why that might be the case is I think still when people come in, they're coming in and they're trying to do it in the lowest friction way. And it's kind of ironic because even though Ethereum has a lot of friction with the fees, it's what most people are familiar with in terms of a smart contract platform. You
Yeah.
know, and when they're setting up something like MetaMask, setting up MetaMask is its own endeavor. And then when you tell them they have to switch out the codes so they can function on a different network, even though it's not that complicated, it's just another step and another step. And so my guess is that a lot of the people who create the art, it is so easy to come in. It's so simple to go on OpenSea and just go to create an NFT, you know, and then upload your little piece of media, type in whatever you want to. And as we know, OpenSea is really basically Ethereum. And yes, you know, they've begun to introduce Solana, and I believe they have something on Clayton. They have a little bit of exposure there. But when I think of blockchains, the smart contract platform specifically, last year really I started to kind of put them into buckets. And part of it was based on what I was already seeing. And then the other component was me trying to have some sort of prognosis for what it would be viewed as or specialized in down the road. Because I think both of us here, we acknowledge that it is going to be a multi-chain future. It's not going to be one that just dominates everything. So when I think of Ethereum, I think of kind of the all-purpose smart contract platform, and that has its pros and cons. But primarily because it came out the gate first, it has a lot of the network effects, so it'll
Yeah.
kind of be always the OG smart contract platform, and they
Yeah.
have the lion's share of developers. So I think we'll see that continue to be the case. And then when I think about something like the Terra blockchain, I think about DeFi because I don't know of many dApps other than DeFi applications because of Anchor kind of holding down that 20% yield. That's
Holding
what
it
I think,
down.
holding it down. I think that's what I associate with Terra. When I think of Solana, I actually categorize that in my mind as the gaming blockchain, right? Because I think about the speed and I think about how many gaming projects I've seen kind of dominate when I see things on Solana. Same thing kind of with Terra. I usually see gaming projects make their way over to Solana. So I'm curious, what would you say Avalanche, their overall theme is currently, or what you think it is trending towards if we were to use that kind of framework?
Currently, right now, definitely GameFi. Definitely games. There's things like Ascenders, which is coming, which is kind of like a single player type of adventure, which are they're looking for more of a Breath of the Wild type of experience. You got Castle Crush, the mobile game coming. You have Shrapnel, which is going to be a extraction based tactical shooter, where you can actually buy the land maps and then kind of like build upon them and earn. Um, you have things like Pulsar, which comes from like some of the same people that worked at the development studio house at I think it's called Wildlife Studios, and their kind of thing is going to be a little bit like StarCraft. You have Wrestling Verse, which I think is coming with a rebrand, and they're kind of creating this expansive universe of storytelling around wrestling, and they're getting like professional wrestlers who are actually bringing their likeness to the games. Yeah, no, there's a whole lot of game stuff coming, and already there. There's Heroes Chain with artists that came from where they came from what's that show? Dun, 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 dun. Game of
Oh,
Thrones. Game of Thrones. Yeah, the guy who designed like the White Walkers and stuff like that,
wow.
like people like that. They have a little mini game out, just kind of introducing kind of the concept of what they're building. So yeah, but really, all for A Ventures at least, all the major investments we've been making in the last have been games, honestly. Kind of betting on or that ability to kind of attract new people into this space. I think the DeFi narrative was also big initially for them. I feel like there was, with the Wonderland thing that happened, that caused the thing, like say, "Oh, we're gonna switch that narrative." So I feel like that was like around that time was like
pivot
games. But I mean, yeah. So but we have some cool things in DeFi being built, like the central limit order books, which is from Dexalot, options trading, Arrows Markets, a whole bunch of indexes who have been building on it. So we have a lot of that coming as well. The thing that's underused, or I think on all of the chains, even as you get costs, like I said, on Ethereum, governance is really expensive because voting, like to vote, that's probably one of the reasons that voting is so low, is you have to pay gas to vote, right? Unless you're using Snapshot, which is off chain. But on Avalanche, Solana's, Terra's, the cost of voting is a whole lot less. So I'm so always surprised, just like the number of proposals in voting is like so low. So that's the other thing that's surprising to me. It's like even when you have governance, the number of proposals that go through is still relatively not active when it's not as costly to do it. So yeah, I think I answered the question in that ramble.
Definitely. When I was looking through your Twitter feed, I saw there was a lot of games being mentioned there, and I believe I saw the teaser trailer for Ascenders a few weeks ago. I don't know if they released anything more in depth, but it definitely looked like they were going for the kind of AAA.
Ascenders have too many games out, I believe.
Okay.
The first mini game was like a time. Well, I think they're both time trials. One was a time trial where you're playing as a character, and the other one was you're like this little robot thing that's rolling around, and you're trying to like make it through circles in time, kind of like racing. I'm also a big. I mean, we're talking about games. I'm a big hyper casual gamer, so people think that this is hyper gaming, but like I like hyper casual, like things that you can put more time in, but are like easy, fun loving, like you can do for a couple minutes and leave. So that's kind of where Castle Crush fits in. There's this game called like Avax Blobs. They're making a little racing game with blobs that I like. It's kind of like so it's meant to be like Fallout, Fall Guys.
Okay.
So like I like that kind of stuff. It's just like it's real bright, real colorful. You race your thing, bounce about, like just fun. Yeah, but no games. I feel like definitely games is where Avalanche is right now. The whole metaverse conversation. I think that they're making a big investment in inside getting influencers, celebrities to build stuff at the Avalanche Summit. I know they had Elon Musk's wife. I think her name is
Grimes.
Grimes. So I was like Ben and Grimm. Like I was trying to associate it. Grimes. So she's doing some meta interstellar children's book type of thing. I'm not going to say I was excited about it. Like when they did the Avalanche Summit, like, I mean, like she's cool. I'm sure. I don't know any of her music. But I was like saying, the only way I'm going to be impressed is if they bring out Beyonce. Like they bring out Beyonce and say she's making something like that. Okay, you did something I would never expect it. But like, so she's building. So Grimes is building an interstellar children's book. That's cool. They need to get Beyonce though. So if anybody's able to have listening, we got to get Beyonce to build something.
That will be the moat. That will be the moat.
Right. No, look, if you talk about like a mass adoption mover or moving people to do it, if you get beyond, like if you have our tickets be using like Lost Worlds, which is like a location-based NFT thing, or if you have an experience with her based upon anything within the space, I'm telling you, you are going to become the chain, the place to be. Like so those kind of cultural icons, which is kind of where I think the back and the profile picture things kind of was targeting, was creating that unique club to kind of draw people like them eventually in. So yeah, so that's what's always interesting about the NFT stuff. Definitely. Now I'm definitely digressing. I don't even know how I got to that conversation.
No. It's completely fine. The last question related to Avalanche I really wanted to ask you is, aside from, obviously we spoke about the DAGs earlier, but there are other blockchains that use that structure for consensus. What would you say, from your opinion, being a builder, being heavily involved in the ecosystem, what would you say is AVAX or Avalanche's moat? What makes it something where if there were other builders coming in, you might encourage them to, hey, there is Ethereum, there is this blockchain, there's that blockchain, but you should really check out Avalanche. What is that main feature that you believe creates a moat for Avalanche?
Subnets. Subnets. No, so subnets. Basically, Avalanche has this really interesting approach to scalability. There's already validators on the network, right? So they're validating what's happening on C chain, P chain, and X chain, which is the main chains for Avalanche. But you can create new networks that have any type of logic that you want, right? And those are called subnets. And the only thing for a subnet to exist is they have to have existing validators from the main network who are willing to also validate the transactions on their network. And what this provides is a subset of validators that can actually take part in validating a network and its functionality to expand what they're doing. So if you're on C chain, one of the biggest gas consumers on Avalanche is called Crabita. It's a crab game. You go mining and looting and you breed crabs and you fight battle royale style, baby. But actually, this is not quite there yet. But I mean, they're going to battle eventually. So they take about, I think, like 30 or 40% of the gas on the network. People are trying to earn the treasure under the sea, right? Now, if you take that and you move them to a subnet, you actually remove that congestion off the network. And then you have validators that are saying, I'm going to use some of my bandwidth and time or computation power to validate the main network, the C chain, where majority of stuff happening, but also make sure I dedicate some resources separately to validating the resources for Crabita. So Crabita can have its own network, its own gaming basic engine running that's still part of the larger ecosystem as a subset, adhering to that same consensus mechanism, or a novel one if they want to. So I believe they're talking about bringing native Bitcoin on as a subnet. So basically, you can basically run the validation methodologies of mining for Bitcoin, but still be in the Avalanche ecosystem, which then allow you to create bridges between those two inside of a native way. Subnets.
Okay.
That's our narrative right now, actually, on Avalanche. It is where that's going to take us. So even for Fi-Hub, when we talk about being multi-chain, we're going to be making sure that the introduction to people to the space allows them to also move in between subnets, because there are going to be different experiences in those space, and making sure those transitions is easy is important.
Okay, now let me ask you this now, just very admittedly, you are far more technical than I am. What about the way that the subnets work? And maybe it is the validators being able to kind of lend out their computational power to the subnets, but conceptually, very high level, it reminds me of what Polkadot is aiming to do, as well as what Cosmos is doing in some ways. So how would you say, what are the main differentiators between those? And obviously there's a different level of adoption and traction that Avalanche has gained thus far.
Yeah. I saw a really cool diagram of this, and I can't fully remember between Cosmos and Polkadot which one it was. But one of them has shared security, right?
That's Polkadot has shared security, if I'm not mistaken.
Security.
Yeah.
So then shared security requires everything fit into that same paradigm structure of what's already there. So that's there. Now, I think Polkadot did announce, or Polygon, somebody recently announced they was going to make supernets, which was, I think, some similar to subnets, basically. So that was interesting. But so that's shared security. But then also there's limitations in other places. It's always trade-offs. And for Cosmos, I believe they are separate entities, but there's not shared resources necessarily in between them either. It's more like a hub and spoke type of thing. Like you have a hub and then you have a bridge to something else happening here. So it's not a shared validator set or shared resource in that regard. So then there's different security, but it is more of that bridging structure. Whereas inside the Avalanche one, it's not shared security, and it's not necessarily hub and spoke either, but it's a shared validator set for everything that happens underneath. So that's the different structures, high level, if that makes sense.
Okay, for sure. Yes, people listening may have had that question just like I did, because I do think that, there's a few multi-chain protocols that we're seeing really come to the fore, and I didn't realize that subnet component of Avalanche existed there. So that is good information to have. Good information, indeed.
That's
So
what I'm here for.
thank you. I appreciate you, brother. So let's go ahead. Let's transition to our penultimate segment, and this is going to be the over/under. So all we're going to do here, really simply, I'm going to throw out a few terms, and then you can let me know if you feel it is overrated or underrated, and then feel free to elaborate to whatever degree you feel like it. I used to do it a slightly different way, but sometimes people felt like a big gotcha if they couldn't explain their rationale. All right. So are you ready, Jamari?
Let's get it on.
All right. Bitcoin.
Underrated.
Okay. Love it. NFTs.
Underrated.
Hardware wallets.
Hardware wallets. Overrated. And overrated because of this. Like, you can still get bashed with a hammer. Like, I mean, and then so it's like so that extra level of security take you so far, and then then the accessibility of issue of them and whatnot. Like, it's very secure under like the regular cybersecurity aspects. But doing dumb stuff, you can still do dumb stuff.
Okay. Smooth. Play to earn.
Play to earn. Play to earn. Overrated. Yeah, and because I want to play to have fun. Like, I do want to earn stuff, but I want to let me have fun, like build something enjoyable. I play and earn, kind of that concept, even though it's just a word difference, the idea behind it is different. It's like saying you can play something, but you have a mechanism to earn, like within that. Like, you have marketplaces and you have means of generating stuff. But first, it's you're going to play. Play to earn is a job.
I hear that. Web3.
Underrated. And mainly because Web3 is just a way of encompassing what's already being built, cryptocurrencies, but it also includes things like like IPFS and other things of that nature, basically decentralized technologies and all the permutations of that. And I think that concept of disintermediating and empowering people to have ownership of, people haven't grasped that yet. So they're underrating it tremendously.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. Let me think about another one. Stable coins.
I mean, they are what they are.
I'm gonna push back. I think they're severely underrated. And I say that because a lot of times people, they have this, particularly new people, this idea that to be involved in crypto or digital assets, you have to take the risk of losing your money.
Okay, yeah, in that regards. So I think maybe that's where mine is different, because I introduced people I've introduced recently. I introduced them to stablecoin yield farming. Like,
and that's the first thing I try to do.
Yeah, so am I saying, oh no, we're not, like, no, just switch over to TUSD, USDC, DAI, and we're just going to put that in and earn 10%. And in 6 months, check back. Oh, look what you got. I saying, like, oh, it didn't triple. But I said, okay, well, how much did you get in your bank account normally on this? All right.
Exactly.
Like, that's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So yeah, so in that regards, yes, it's underrated. Yes. But stablecoins themselves are what they are.
Okay, for sure. Just because we spoke about this a little bit in Discord, I'm gonna just throw it out. But Frontier.
I haven't done their market cap thing, but I think they're underrated, honestly. I like Frontier. You were talking about Frontier the game, right? Yeah. See, I'm biased because I'm definitely into. I want to play that game, like, and I want to see what that vision ends up like. And that's the interesting thing is, like, I don't know if I'm underrated or overrating it yet, because there's not quite enough information to decide. But there's enough hype for me to feel like the potential is much higher than what people see right now. So I'm going to go with underrated, with the caveat of I know I'm biased.
Okay, sticking to it. The Brave browser.
Brave browser. underrated. People don't. I mean, they're doing lots of cool stuff. I mean, they've had really good adoption, actually. Their ad blocking works. I mean, it's funny that their business model is based upon if our ad blocking works, that means we can give you other ads. That's their business model. But I mean, it works, and that's viable. They're working on a search engine, kind of like the DuckDuckGo type of approach. So yeah, no, I think they're underrated. People aren't valuing what they're building. It might be the business model isn't strong enough, but I don't have the numbers behind that to tell. So I'm a little underrated.
Builders, beginners, degens, no matter who you are or what your experience is in crypto, we invite you to join us in the Alchemist community. We're proud to be a community-built project that brings together some of the most talented builders and passionate community members who are all here to support each other as we build world-changing products that promote a more open, fair, and transparent financial system. If you're ready to join the revolution, want to fulfill a role in our community, or just have questions about what Alchemist is all about, jump into our Discord and join in the conversation at discord.alchemist.wtf. For those that missed it, that's discord.alchemist.wtf. Join us. We can't wait to have you. Now, the last question I have for you is the alpha section. So in this section, all we really are trying to do here is just get some piece of wisdom, advice, guidance from you. So it does not need to be crypto or digital asset related. It can be about anything, any topic, any subject. But what sort of alpha would you like to provide for our guests, something you think could be of value to them or enrich their lives?
Quantum computing. That is an area that was also my introduction space doing a quantum resistant ledger, which was to introduce cryptography that would mitigate that eventuality. But quantum computing has the capacity to dramatically change the way that computation works. It's a potential leapfrog in our way of processing information, how we process it, to do new type of modeling. So if you have the capacity to find yourself engaging around or learning how to program computers that leverage quantum computing, I would definitely say that is a worthwhile area that will eventually intersect with cryptocurrencies and Web3 technology at some point in some way. So quantum computing, not discussed in our space a lot, but has a lot of impacts on what we're building and our security, as well as just its own upside of what its capacity to change the way business is done. Also, another alpha is that whether the market is up or down, your health matters. So make sure that you're taking care of your mental, physical, spiritual well-being. Whether things look good, things look bad, your body and time is going to keep moving, and you can find joy regardless of the markets. That's people some need to be reminded of. And then let's go, and then in crypto related alpha. I mean, I am a big fan, honestly, of this project Lost Worlds. It's location-based NFTs. Basically, it's kind of combining the ability to mint an NFT with where you are, so you can kind of get that Pokemon Go experience, or you can get like Monopoly money. Like imagine you go to McDonald's and it knows you're there, so then you mint your piece instead of having to like buy it that way. So there's a potential for these new type of experiences via that still use that transfer of value. I'm really bullish on that concept and idea. So there's that. And then alpha, my Phi hubs, anything I build is an alpha. So if I talk about something, that's something I believe in. And I don't talk about stuff because of money valuation all the time. I like it. I talk about stuff because I like it. I don't talk about nothing I don't like. So if I mention it, I like it. So if you follow my Twitter, or you follow what Snowball, my Phi hub, or Axel talk about, or Lava, you'll see stuff I like. And if I like it because I like it. And you can see if you like it too.
Excellent. I love it. Well, Jamari, this has been excellent, very wide-ranging conversation. I appreciate your time. We, the Alchemist community, appreciate your time. Please, any last thoughts you have, and then follow that up with letting people know where they can find you and where they can connect with you.
Yes, no, I think I put my last thoughts in my alpha actually. So
Perfect.
in regards to where we connect, so Snowball is on Twitter at Snowball the underscore Snowball Defi, I believe. I'm Jamari underscore P, Jomari underscore P. My Fi Hub is at my Fi Hub, MYFIHUB. I believe the Lavox, which is a liquid staking protocol that's coming, is Lavox.org, LAVAX.org. And then there's Axial Defi, AXIALDEFI. So those are the projects that I'm oriented with, as well as A Ventures DAO. If you're building something and looking for investment, and if you're looking at the copper launch, you want to talk about the Snowball. If you're looking at more of a seed for private investments, you might want to reach out to the A Ventures DAO. That's on Twitter as well. We're building, supporting builders in the space. Those are a whole bunch of Twitter hashtag ads, by the way. You can find the Discords from there. But I always love to talk, always glad to be an asset. I appreciate the time to talk to the Alchemist community. May you guys eventually find your philosopher's stone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Jamari, and we'll talk to you soon, brother. Thank you.